Citrus trees are heavy feeders, and they need a steady source of nitrogen to support their evergreen leaves and developing fruit. The frequent watering for container-grown specimens causes nutrients to leach out over time. I learned this the hard way, but I'm on a mission to elevate my citrus game. I've been drenching my container citrus weekly with a combination of Rev, Holy Mackerel fish fertilizer, and the MaxiCrop soluble seaweed. Results are beginning to show after only 2 applications, and these citrus trees are putting on new growth, flowering, and setting fruit. Here's my weekly maintenance routine for container-grown citrus throughout the growing season. Hey, it's Scott from New Garden Road, always out here to inform, inspire, and elevate you. Encouraging biodiversity and restoring habitat is my mission, one garden at a time. I'm going to be bringing you a series on these citrus trees that I've grown in containers, some of them for over a decade. Before I start, I want to just see what these trees are looking like. I want to document all this. This is the dwarf Meyer lemon that I've had 13 years. This is a dwarf Iranian lemon, and it's got some scale issues. This is a Calamandan. Looks hungry. Let's feed this tree. This is the Ujikitsu lemon. I'd say this one needs a significant shaping up. Wild Night on 6th Street right there. Okay, so I'm gonna take you through the process here of how I like to deliver this liquid drench to my plants. The liquid seaweed is one that I'm gonna start off with, and I wanna show you what you need to do to really mix up the soluble powder in a way that I think is really effective and easy. I use this glass mason jar here, but first I need to get a little bit of water. I'm gonna add some to my jar here. Also, this is a 2-gallon watering can. You can get different size watering cans. I really like having a 2-gallon one because it makes it simpler, in my opinion, in dosing the ingredients. For example, this one is listed at 1 teaspoon per gallon. I don't have to do any fractions or anything. I just go 2 teaspoons, dropping that in, secure the lid onto the mason jar, make sure it's really tight, but essentially you just have to shake it up really good. You see how it's kind of in flex there, in globs. So that's a little bit of an extra step, but I find it to be much more effective than putting your soluble seaweed in your watering can. It'll mix up, but you can't be sure that you got it all mixed up. This way you can. We've got the seaweed in there, and then I'm gonna go with the Holy Mackerel. This is my fertilizer. You gotta shake all these liquid products up when they're concentrated really well. And here it tells us how much, 1 tablespoon or 15 milliliters per gallon of water. So I know I've got 2 gallons of water here, means I need 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters. Gonna feed the trees. Now it's time to go for the Rev. After using Rev in my winter garden for the first time, I was eager to employ it in revitalizing my citrus. This 100% naturally occurring form of carbon, humic acid, and fulvic acid also contains high levels of microbes which increase nitrogen efficiency and nutrient uptake. It's basically humic acid concentrate. You know, it's got trees and shrubs established on here, but I'm gonna go with the container plants because my trees are in containers at 1 to 2 tablespoons liquid per 1 gallon of water. Since I intend to apply this weekly, I'm gonna go on the low side and start with 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. And it'll be the same amount as the Holy Mackerel. So that also provides some consistency in the application, which can be helpful. And now I'm gonna top it off with the appropriate level of water. The reason I don't like to fill up the water all the way from the get-go is because this will help to mix it up. I like this PVC pipe here. I use this to agitate the solution, keep it mixed up really well. One thing that you can't do is mix up something like this and let it sit overnight or for several days, or use it some now and some next week. Whatever you mix up, you need to use it all, because some of the elements will dissipate into the air. They'll lose their integrity. You want to administer them shortly after mixing them up, certainly within the same day. Now we've got everything mixed up in here. Let's give it to the trees. So there are a couple of key things to consider ahead of applying a liquid drench to a plant in a container, or in ground for that matter. And one of them is to assure that your plant is adequately hydrated. Just think about it this way. I don't know if you drink coffee or anything like that, but if you're dehydrated, that's going to be difficult for your system to process. It can cause you some stress of some sort, right? So the same thing could happen to your plants if they're dehydrated. It may cause them some stress, and they won't be able to process those nutrients as you intend for them to. I want to cover something. It's a really good question that you don't often get a clear answer for, and the back of the product bottles don't really indicate how much product to give your plant. They'll tell you the mixing ratio for your application, but they don't tell you how much. Like in the case of a drench, how much to drench? The answer I'm going to give you is not going to be scientific, but it's going to be common sense. Typically, I make a couple of passes, but it's probably, if I had to guess, around a quart that I'm giving to each container. You can measure it out if you want to. My philosophy is, if I'm doing this weekly, that it's going to have a benefit. So what can happen oftentimes when you go to drench, fertilize, or even water a plant in a container that's somewhat root bound, that water will take the path of least resistance. It's going to hit the top of the soil, go to the side, the edge of the pot, go straight down and out of the drainage hole. That's not going to be helpful in our case. We really want it to soak in evenly and saturate that soil mix so that it can be uptaken by those roots. To give you another somewhat strange analogy, just think about if you're drinking some water and you put more down there than you can swallow, what's going to happen? The water's going to come out the side of your face. That's the path of least resistance. It's just got to go somewhere. So in this case, what I recommend is making several passes. You don't want to give your container any more of that drench mix than it can absorb at a given time. Generally, I've developed what I like to call the 2 sips protocol. I'll give my container a nice sip of that drench and then I'll wait. I'll let it soak in, make sure it's not coming out the bottom, and then I go in and give it a second one. So that's the 2 sips method. I always start from the outside. All right, give it a second. So I don't know if that was a quart or not, but that feels like a good amount to me. I could see it pooling and then beginning to soak in. On that order, I'm going to go ahead and drench the rest of my containers. I've also been applying a foliar application of seaweed each week. The cytokinins in seaweed thicken cell walls and promote cell division, making leaf surfaces tougher. This is a preconditioning technique best done on a regular basis, and it helps trees endure extreme heat and cold. I want to update you on the progress of my citrus trees after 4 consecutive weeks of this practice. I'm happy to say that I'm seeing lots of healthy new growth. Bright, shiny, dark green leaves are emerging. I'm even continuing to see more flowering and fruit set. There is another step that we need to get into, and I'm going to cover that in the next video in this series, and that is going to be pruning. As we are promoting healthy new growth on these trees, they're actively growing. That's a great time to give them a shaping up. They will branch out, become more shrubby, and all those new leaves that emerge will be drawing from the nutrients that you're giving them each week, and they're going to be strong, they're going to be healthy, and your citrus tree is really going to take off. The triple trouble trio. 2 sips. Almost done. Thanks, B. And it helps to... Now check out more awesome gardening videos on my channel, like this video, and follow New Garden Road for weekly content. You can grow your own container citrus. Keep it organic.